Once upon a time, there was a group of evil spirits who were trying to enter a holy man. The spirits had already tried tempting him with women and fine foods and treasures, but all attempts had failed. One day, Satan passed by and watched his students' pathetic efforts at this temptation. "You are hopeless," said Satan. "You haven't used the one temptation that no one can resist. Watch, and I'll show you." Satan went over to the holy man and whispered in his ear, "Remember that priest who studied under you? He's just been made bishop of Alexandria." Immediately, the holy man was filled with rage and blasphemed against the injustice of God. And Satan said to his students, "Next time, remember what I've showed you. Everyone has a nemesis." Temptation, it happens to all of us. A temptation is defined as the desire to do something which is often wrong or unwise. A temptation usually attracts or draws us in. A trick, a deception, a lie. It shrouds the truth and it deceives us into thinking it is the truth. Temptation lures us into doing or saying or thinking something that does not honestly reflect who we are as disciples of Jesus, who we are as children of God. A temptation leads us away from truth, away from peace, away from joy and happiness. It gives us the illusion of a quick and easy fix. It's devious. Temptation is irrational. It has no sense, and it anticipates that we will not take the time to think, to use our brains, because if we did, we would quickly realize how irresponsible. Temptation succeeds best when our brains are not firing on all cylinders. Maybe we're feeling exhausted or under stress or under the influence of drugs or alcohol. There's nothing more deceptive and misleading than temptation. When temptation presents itself, we have a choice to make. We either follow the temptation like Adam and Eve in the Old Testament reading, or we overcome the temptation like Jesus did today. After the sin of Adam and Eve, everything changes, and the way humankind relate to one another and with God is broken. Genesis tells us that for the first time, Adam and Eve realized they're naked and they must wear clothes. Now, just the thought of two human beings covered with fig leaves and attempting to hide from an all-seeing, all-knowing God is kind of humorous to us, but even more so to the ancient world. Fig leaves are not exactly user-friendly. They contain an enzyme called phycine, and when touched, it causes severe skin rashes. So wearing fig leaves sewn together, especially one naked, would definitely have been an act of penance. Now, you kind of have to wonder, did they think, right? Yet, don't we do the same thing when we act as if God doesn't know exactly what we do? In the gospel reading, Jesus sets an example for us. He suffers real temptation in the desert. The letter to the Hebrews reminds us that Jesus was tempted in every way that we are, yet he does not sin. He's tempted to prove he is the Son of God by misusing his divine power. If you are the Son of God, command these stones to become loaves of bread. If you're the Son of God, throw yourself down. For it is written, he will give his angels charge of you. And during the third temptation, Jesus is tempted to totally wreck his Father's plan, just as we are sometimes tempted to totally wreck God's plan for us. All of these I will give you if you will fall down and worship me. But Jesus overcomes the temptation. Not just the ones in the desert, but others that he encounters. When Peter offers the temptation not to suffer his passion, Jesus rebukes him, saying, "Get behind me, Satan." And in Gethsemane, the temptation not to face his passion. "Take this cup away from me so I don't have to taste its poison." And as he's hanging on the cross, and the soldiers mock him and tell him to save himself, Jesus could, but he doesn't. In the new covenant, Jesus heals the relationship between God and us that was broken by the sin of Adam and Eve. Jesus is the new Adam, the all new and improved version of Adam. He rectifies the sin of the first Adam, as the reading from Hebrews says, then as one man's trespass led to condemnation for all humankind, so one man's act of righteousness leads to acquittal and life for all humankind. For as by one man's disobedience many were made sinners, so by one man's obedience many will be made righteous. This past Wednesday, we began the season of Lent. Lent is similar in length to the time that Jesus spent in the desert overcoming temptation. During Lent, we make sacrifices and focus on prayer and service. All of these actions are expressions of something inside us that we want to do during Lent, to give up sin by overcoming temptation. In other words, what we really want to give up during Lent is not candy or chocolate cake or any of those other things. What we really want to do is give up sin. We want to give it up because we know it destroys us. It drags us down and it damages our relationship with God and with others, with ourselves. We want to give up sin during Lent because temptation conceals the way to wholeness and integrity, becoming more like Christ. Jesus overcame temptation in the desert, and because we are followers of Jesus, we too want to overcome temptation and sin during the desert of Lent. By dying to sin during Lent, we rise to new life with Jesus at Easter. Temptation comes to us in moments when we look at others and feel insecure about not being or having enough. Temptation comes to us in judgments we make about strangers, friends. Temptation rules us, allowing us to look away from those in need and to live our lives as if we're unaffected by poverty, hunger, disease, or any other affliction of our neighbor. That's their problem, not mine. Temptation rages when we allow our temper to define our lives. When addiction to wealth, power, influence over others, vanity, or an inordinate need for control defines who we are. Temptation wins when we engage in the justification of little white lies, small sins like racist jokes, a questionable business practice, or the disparagement of a friend. Temptation wins when we get so caught up in the trappings of life that we lose sight of life itself. These are the faceless moments of evil. And although they may seem mundane, they lurk eerily in the dark corners of our lives. Lenten penitence, the desire to turn away from sin and back toward God. Lenten penitence shines a light in the dark places in our lives. It allows us to come face to face with temptations, to name them, to understand them, and to ask forgiveness of them. It's not about guilt. It's about freedom. Freedom from the control that our fears and our insecurities have over us. Penitence is all about the amendment of life and the glorious possibility of new beginning. Away with you, Satan, for it is written, worship the Lord your God and serve only him. Thanks be to God.